The first part of the video is not going to start right into the interpretation. What I have to do is set up how the interpretation is going to happen. I'm not going to just read this like somebody and let it be that way. What we're going to do is mentally interact with this. So bear with me. The video's not going to start right off with me reading the Upanishad. It's going to start off with trying to understand how this works and how we're supposed to mentally manage it. You will find out that not only will you talk to the Lord, but you already are. For anyone that's not familiar with my work, you're going to see me doing a lot of blending from a lot of masters from antiquity. Just stick through it and you'll see what I'm doing. Hello, welcome to an interpretation trip through the Upanishads. I'm just going to do the Isha Upanishad in this video. But what I want to do is, since I'm going a little bit different direction, is talk a little bit about Hinduism before I do that. I think from a Western perspective, a lot of people don't really understand how Hinduism works. I know my family doesn't. I've got a brother that thinks that Buddhists worship Buddha and wait for his return. It's like, oh my God, no, you can't take Western ideas to other cultures and do that. So, all right. So Buddhism is well known as a mental path. In fact, if we went to the Dhammapada, the Buddha teaches this, the very first verse, what he says here in this pivotal teaching is all that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts. It is made up of our thoughts. That's the very first thing the Buddha says. This is going to be a mental path. If we're hurt and we want to go on a healing path, why do we hurt? We got issues upstairs and we have to sort through that. And actually, I've been making videos a long time. My regular viewers know that I cross-reference like that. I realize Buddha is not going to be the Isha Upanishad. What I'm going to suggest is that I find a common teaching, a common core teaching in all of the religions and spiritual traditions, and I will cross-reference back and forth. If this one starts right off saying it's a mental path, and this one starts off saying this is from the Tao Te Ching. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. That didn't say it was a mental thing there. It didn't. This one's cryptic. Treat it like it's a guru. What's my problem, Master? How come my life sucks? How come I can't figure things out? He says the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. This pathway that I want to take is not the eternal pathway if I'm hearing it. The path that can be told is not the eternal path. What is the eternal path then? This would be like saying the path that can be preached is not the right way. The path that you take in your own mind is the right way. So now we understand by working it through mentally that it too is a mental path through implication of how it works. If the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao, the way that can be talked about is not the right way, then the way that is taken personally is the right way. We can talk about it, and it's right, but it's not eternal. It's not yours. It's not experiential yet. We're going to find that exact same thing nested in all teachings. It's going to start off telling us it's a mental process. I want to approach this with that idea in mind because when we get to the Upanishads, we're going to have something in there called the Lord. There's going to be something happening in there that is a mental hierarchy. And I'm going to tell you right now, you already talk to the Lord. You just don't know it. We're going to figure out how that works. But, and this is why it's important to have this talk up front, the Lord that we're going to be talking to is a mental concept. It is not the God of Abraham. It is not the God of Abraham. We're not talking to the God of Abraham. We're talking to a Hindu Lord in this material. It's going to be something different. So when we get to Hinduism, it is very much an inner path. In fact, let me read something here that I copied from Britannica.com, the topic Hinduism, general nature of Hinduism. And this is, I just picked this one paragraph out right here. Obviously there's more to it than that, but this is an important part. More strikingly than any other major religious community, Hindus accept, and indeed celebrate, the organic, multi-level, and sometimes pluralistic nature of their traditions. This expansiveness is made possible by the widely shared Hindu view that truth or reality cannot be encapsulated in any creedal formulation, a perspective expressed in the Hindu prayer, "May good thoughts come to us from all sides." Thus, Hinduism maintains that truth must be sought in multiple sources, not dogmatically proclaimed. That Jesus says that same thing, that truth must be sought in multiple sources. Seek and knock for righteousness. You look for truth, not dogmatically proclaimed. What is dogmatically proclaimed? God is true. How do you know? The Bible tells me so. Where does the Bible come from? From God. Okay, wait a minute. Yeah, and you can't question it. No, you can't question it. That's dogmatic. That's not looking. That's not seeking. That's not even doing what Jesus says to do. Jesus has got something going on in the background that people that worship him don't get. I know I need to get on with the interpretation of that, but I just needed to set this up. It's really big, and I got to be careful that I don't try to describe too much. We need to get into the interpretation. Each one of the religions is very huge, but each one of them is built on a template using analogous verbiage that make them all sound different. What I'm doing is going to the core template. That's why it sounds weird what I'm doing here. If you haven't watched my previous videos, in its simplest form, it would be something like this. I want to nest a concept that I've got something that's happened in my past that I don't have resolved, and as a result, that it continues to hurt. It cycles, I get triggered, there's a problem continuously. And I need to teach people that the problem is that I'm hanging on to that. That's the issue right there. I'm hanging on to something and I can't get free of it. However, if I tell the population, you got to forgive or let off the hook or somehow resolve these issues in order to be okay, the majority of people are not going to pass that around. This needs to get to the people that are going to use it. So, plus the population needs some guidance and control as well. So you can put it in a vehicle, a verbal vehicle that a person can find. And in this case, I could say something like an anchored ship cannot sail. And that the ship represents me. And as long as the ship is anchored, it doesn't sail. People would pass that around. I could say the dog chained in the yard cannot escape. And people would listen to those two and say they're not at all the same thing. I would look at it, however, and say, I'm the dog that's chained. I'm the ship that's anchored. Conceptually, they're identical if you find that part. Now, these get thick and deep, but that's what we're looking for here. Okay, let's pull up the Upanishad then and see why we need to understand this better. All right, here we've got it up, the Isha Upanishad. And what's it called? The Inner Ruler. The Inner Ruler. This is for you. This is for us. First line, the Lord is enshrined in the hearts of all. Right there. We need to know what that is. The Lord is enshrined in the hearts of all. We need to know what Lord is. Enshrined, heart of all, that's everybody. So that's each of us. What is Lord? Enshrined inside of. The milk is enclosed inside of the jar. The Lord is enshrined in the hearts of men. Let's get it that clear. Okay, the heart, first of all, let's talk about that. What is a heart? As you reason it through, you understand that it can't be the heart, not the physical heart. So you think, well, it's something different. That's where we kind of tend to stop right there. We know it's not the heart. It's something about my inner self, my feeling something. Okay, so what this really is feeling. Do you have a heavy heart or a light heart? That's not really the right thing to say. Do you feel heavy or do you feel light? Do you feel good? Do you feel bad? Those are analogous terms. Heavy heart, light heart. That would be like saying you have bats in your belfry. Those are analogous terms. They're meant to carry something else. It's not really the heart, it's something else. What is it then? It's the way I feel. And why do we call it a heart? Because it's through our central nervous system. When it's emotions, it's not just like hearing it, smelling it, tasting it, touching it. It's like feeling it. No, this is something different. It comes from here. It comes from I got hands going both directions, but it's not in the camera. Yeah, that whole feeling radiates through my entire body. The Lord resides in there, in the heart. What is that? Nope, because the heart, the feelings are a product of something else. What precedes the feelings? Where do the feelings come from? The feelings come from the mind, from thought processes, from hurt, from pain, from judgments. I like this. I don't like that. I'm ashamed. I don't have this resolved. That accumulates until we get all full of all manner of things. So what we end up with is a confused mind that makes us feel bad, or a healthy, happy mind that makes us feel good at that time. So the Lord resides in the hearts of men. The Lord is what now? Okay, you interact with it daily. It is a part of our mind that is the higher awareness. We actually need to compartmentalize things here a little bit because there are some compartments that we have to work with. First of all, the consciousness, which is where we experience life or experience memories, live through memories. That's the consciousness. But those memories are where? They're in the subconscious. They're not all the time there. They can be put away someplace and you can go pull them up somewhere else. So we've got a conscious and we've got a subconscious. When we're born, that subconscious is empty. As we live life, that subconscious becomes full, and we're living through, when we're not paying attention, we're living through the mass of memories right there. Now, there's another part of us where we come from, that we emerge from, and we want to get back to. It's called the higher self. If you know Eckhart Tolle, he talks about this where he's at night talking, his enlightenment, he's saying, I can't live with myself anymore. I don't know what's going on. But it dawns on him, there's two people in here talking. Who is it that can't live with myself? And he begins to realize he's got a bundle of memories he's experiencing, but there's a higher awareness that is not experiencing that. We would see that ourselves. We can do it in the daytime, but here's the biggest one, probably that it can be most stark. If you're at a point where you're turning inward, that most people today should be waking up 3, 4 in the morning, somehow confused and, hurt, wrestling with some kind of a mental turmoil. That seems to be natural. When that goes on, if you pay attention, you'll notice that your mind is going back and forth with, you're probably having arguments in your mind with somebody, something, somehow, situations. It's going on and on and on, and it's got you feeling stress. You can't get to sleep. You're wide awake. You know you need to sleep. You got to get up in a few hours anyway. And every once in a while, a small voice comes in unsolicited. This is going to be the higher awareness. This is going to be the Lord. And it comes in and says, hey, there's nothing you can do tonight. Just go to sleep. You take care of it tomorrow. You know that. But we slip right back into the memories, not knowing that that's the Lord, that that's the higher awareness. We don't pay attention to it. But if you're sitting there when that happens, you'll notice that at the moment that is occurring in your head, you will not feel the turmoil. You're disconnected from the emotions when you're in that mind state right there. You can either live through the memories in the subconscious or this higher awareness. That higher awareness is there all the time. It is always there. Throughout the day, we'll have internal arguments. I know what to do. This is their best thing. I'm scared to. I'm not going to. But this or that, we talk ourselves out of it. That higher awareness is always there that steps outside and says, this is what you must do. That's what we need to be nurturing. It is always there. So if we go back to read this again and say, the Lord is enshrined in the hearts of all. The higher awareness is contained in the mind of all of us. It's not in our emotional state. We can feel good or bad. The Lord is always there. That higher awareness is always there. But we also come from whatever that is out there. Yeah, okay. So is everybody on board with that? So what that means then is that this is mental. If you think about that, what are we doing? We're going through mental processes. We're mentally going into our mind and going, okay, here's my consciousness. I can turn away from my memories. Oh, I can go to the higher awareness. I need to do this. Yes, I do. Then you can step and turn inward and go, okay, now here's something I feel bad about from my past, the shame, a pain, a hurt. Bingo. You'll start feeling the emotions for it. You will even have physiological reactions to it if it's bad stuff. Sweating, something, embarrassment, face, and turn red or something like that. Or somehow when you realize that that's there, you pull up that memory and that emotion comes right up with it. This is what we're living through, but we don't know it. All right, so when you have an opportunity, when you're not watching the video, when you're by yourself someplace, you really have to do this by yourself. It has to happen in your head. I'm telling you everything that I've learned, and the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao, is it? Nope, I'm telling you all the Tao, all of it. But you got to pick up this pile of nouns and verbs and make it your own. Not until then does it become eternal. Okay, so when you're on your own then, you sit down and play with that. Go engage with this higher awareness. The teachings are going to be actually telling us to continually do that throughout the day to continue to self-observe. And when you catch yourself slipping off, or when you find yourself, what am I doing down this mental road again? I'm all twisted up in this thinking. Forget it. Step back to the higher awareness. It's going to be very hard at first because we are so habituated into just flowing through that. We have to keep getting to that higher self. In fact, I'll describe how it works. And just think it through on your own. That when we're born, we're living through that higher awareness, except that without having any memories and having any sort of experience accumulated, enough brain wiring to be able to interface, put all the pieces together. I mean, we can't see when we're born. It's a month or so before you even get vision. So we're very incapable. But we're living through that higher awareness. We're happy, we're blissful, as long as we're not colicky or something like that, is if everything is okay, if everything is well cared for, you're in a good environment, everything is healthy, then happy and blissfulness ensues as a result. We're living through the higher awareness, except that we don't even know what the color yellow is, or that that's a banana, or that tastes good. We're just reacting. We're like little organic automatons at first. Later on, we begin to live through our memories. We grow and develop, and this bundle of memories is what we begin to live through. And as we gain experience and we go through life to a point, we continue to do that. We just continue to live through those. How we manage them along the way dictates how they continue to affect us and how we flow through life. Additionally, while we're unaware of it, the general qualities that we start with when we head off on our life, those are going to become somehow cyclical in our life experiences. And since they started out in a very empty brain with a few things in there, as we go through life and accumulate and judge more and more, it's going to become more and more complex with more and more layers of the same thing on top. So the objective now then is to understand all of that stuff and to say, oh, now I can be consciously aware of, I can now be cognizant of that higher awareness because I'm older and I'm more developed, but I have all these memories that I'm living through that are keeping me at a low level. I have to somehow release myself from the emotional state of those memories. And that's what the hero's journey process is. But that's what is happening here. Right now, that Lord residing there, it's telling us that this higher awareness is right there in the beginning. And it's a mental process. Okay, I hope that helps. I think people that are interested are going to stick through it. I know it gets long, but if you just jump into an interpretation without setting this up first, people are wondering, what's he talking about? That's not the Lord. And as you're going through it and you using the terminology from a Western perspective, it's difficult sometimes for us to kind of remove ourselves from that kind of thinking, like, oh, I can't use that word. I'm not, that's not the, And, we get stuck, and that makes it difficult to access the material. We cut ourselves off from it, from being afraid of it. Okay, without further ado then, do we have that set? Let's go ahead and jump into the interpretation of the Isha Upanishad. Remember, it is the inner ruler. And what did we just learn? That this is a mental process. The Lord, the higher awareness, exists in the minds of all humans. The Lord is supreme reality. Everything comes from there. All of that. Rejoice in Him through renunciation. Renunciation is going to align up with judge not lest you be judged, or naming is the origin of all particular things, depending on any other material that you're familiar with. Renunciation does not mean not doing things. It means not judging things. So if we want to rejoice in Him through renunciation, what that means is to stay connected with the higher awareness by not judging. Renunciation. This is a mental process. We're not renouncing things in life. But that's not what this is about. This is about saying, I am not going to judge people. I'm not going to say those people this and those people that just because somebody did something. I'm not going to be that way. I'm not going to say that woman should not have a child because she's yanking him around by the arm and being kind of violent. All I'm going to do is look at that woman and see she was a little girl one time getting yanked around by the arm by somebody being violent. That there's a process going on and that we don't judge that and become part of it. We step back from it and understand it. That's the renunciation and staying connected with the higher awareness. That would be like equivalent to Adam and Eve if Adam and Eve is us in the Garden of Eden before first sin. Covet nothing, all belongs to the Lord. Remember, covet. Covet is what? We think of that word, these are analogs. We have to interpret everything. Treat everything as something that goes into a mental state, not necessarily coveting means I want, I desire. What if you're hungry? You're gonna covet food. What if your car broke down and you're broke and you need to get to work? You're going to covet a car, even if it's one that barely works. It doesn't work. You look at it and go, oh, that just doesn't, I don't get it. All things belong to the Lord, covet nothing. What that means is don't name anything. What we become a product of is all of the things that we have accumulated as far as our judgments in life. I hate this. I'm that, I'm this, I like this, I hate that. All of those. Those is what the covet is. Covet is really an analogous term. It does not mean desire for. It means I'm hanging on to something. If we were to go to the Tao Te Ching and it said naming is the origin of all particular things, that doesn't mean as soon as you give something a name, it comes into being. That's kind of ridiculous. But if you take it into the mental state and go, oh, what that means is that as soon as I have named something, as soon as I've decided something, then it's become a part of me. What this is telling us is to don't do that. Don't name things. Everything is going to be in a pure state. 2, thus working, you may live 100 years. So if you can stay in that state, life will be good. Thus alone, you will work in real freedom. If that were to happen in the Adam and Eve story, that would be what? Not partaking of the tree. It's important to understand when this is completely interpreted at the mental level, though, what this really means is that time in life when you are an infant, before you started judging things in life and you were living through the higher awareness. This is telling us to don't go off and live life judging life or experiences, but to learn and to have a life, but to live through the higher awareness along the way. That's not going to happen. We're going to live through our memories. This is our guru, remember. It's telling us it's mental, and the things that you are going to name as products, the things that you're going to hang on to, let all that go and you'll be happy. You'll be okay. You'll live longer. That's a spiritual thing, though. You will live happy. Okay, moving on. 3, those who deny the self are born again, blind to the self, enveloped in darkness, utterly devoid of the love for the Lord. This is one where we have to be careful. Our Western thinking is going to make us think, oh, that born again is a good thing. That's when everything turns good. That's after the baptism. That's, after asking God into your heart, all of that. That's when that point is. This is actually a born again way before that. This is born again as a child, when we are going from our pure self to our physical self. We're going from our mental, we're not connected, and we haven't judged life, and we're going to be unaware of the fact that we are connected to our higher awareness. We're going to begin to judge life. Blind to the self, enveloped in darkness. That means we're not aware of it. We just don't know that. We're going to go live life judging life, not aware of the fact that we're going to become largely a product of the emotional state of that pile of judgments as we move through life. Utterly devoid of the love for the Lord. So we have now disconnected. This is a point where we were born from a good self to a bad self, actually. This is way before the second, when we need to heal. Okay, the self is one. Ever still, the self is swifter than thought, swifter than the senses. Though motionless, he outruns all pursuit. Without the self, never could life exist. Okay, this is about, the self is one. Ever still, the self is swifter than thought. The self being one is we really want to be a unified person. At times, it doesn't seem like we are. When you're a little kid, you don't have that inner dialogue. As you get older, you begin to have that conflict, a mental conflict that develops. We were one in the beginning, but we become two as life goes on. We need to become one again. In fact, are you familiar with the Gospel of Thomas? Listen to this, number 11. Here's the part. On the day when you were one, you became two. But when you become two, what will you do? Okay, that's the same thing. We're starting off as one, and we are becoming. We don't stay one. We don't stay unified. We become a mixed bag of our experiences. We now have inner conflict. We didn't start with it. We weren't born with it, but we pick it up in life through judgments. Ever still, the self is swifter than thought, swifter than the senses. Though motionless, he outruns all pursuit. Without the self, never could life exist. So this is really describing this background energy that we come from. That's a part of the self, that we are somehow a physical manifestation of an energy field that is a unified something somehow. We're not, consciously, we're not unified that way, but we come from a unified place where there is unity. Without that, life could not exist. Yeah, that's kind of what they would call Brahma, or the universe, or the quantum field. Without that, nothing could exist. Yeah, I'm kind of using some modern terminology here. They weren't using that. But if they could have used the terminology, they would have used the terminology. The self seems to move, but is never still. He seems far away, but is never near. He is within all, and he transcends all. Who is that? That's that higher awareness. It's there. To me, there's a point where we can interact with this. We can sense, there's an emotional field that we all coexist within that we can sense and have. There's things that happen sometimes that seem like they're psychic somehow. And it happens to everybody. Probably some people more than others. It depends on the brain type and the connection to it. But the fields, there's a unity that we exist within, but we don't just go to the five senses and we're separated. We're still connected in an emotional way. We should be able to sense that. Here's a way to tell. You go to a worship, everybody feels uplifted. You're getting caught up in an emotional field at that moment with everybody together doing that you can't get to on your own. You're going to have to be with somebody or some kind of an enlightened state for that to happen. But the same thing happens if you go to a protest and people go there and they're mad about things. Things can get out of control. It gets worse. People feel worse there than they can on their own. So we can see from our own experiences, experientially, we can say that field is there. And there's times I sense things coming up. There's times I detect, something that's happening or clairvoyant moments. That stuff happens all the time. And I believe it's because of that emotional field and because of our brain working there. We can observe that unity somewhere in the background if we stop and pay attention to it. Move but is never still. It comes in and goes. You have to go engage with it. If you don't know that, it will come and go. You'll have an inner dialogue as it tries to tell you what to do, and you let fear and an unconscious and unawareness rule. The memories are going to win until we go, that's it, I've had enough. That's when it's time to turn in. Okay, but all of that is there. Those who see all creatures in themselves and all creatures know no fear. Again, we got to be careful. We have to treat this the same way as everything else. This is a mental process. This did not suddenly shift to talking about the physical world. What is it titled as? The inner ruler. That's it. This is about the inner ruler. So what are the creatures? The creatures are whatever we've got inside of us. Everything that we contain within us and everybody else is all part of a big unity. And as long as we're not paying attention, we just bounce around and float our own personal experience inside of that. Once we know that that's what's happening, we can step back and go, wow, I'm like a pinball bouncing off everything in there when I can stand up here and be above it all. That's what we want to do, is we want to look at within ourselves and see that everything that we have, not just in the world, but everything that we have, all of our experiences that come from people that have hurt us, or that we've hurt, come from other people, that this just goes on and on. We have to get out of our own individual I, me, to see a bigger flow, and that we're like one drop of water that is full of ourselves. We got to drop that and go, yeah, you know what? I'm part of a mass out here. When you see that, you can start separating from it. Those who see all creatures in themselves and all creatures know no grief. So the same thing, no fear, no grief. How can the multiplicity of life delude the one who sees its unity? Yeah, how can all those complex things, all that stuff going on that you're judging, I judge that, oh, I see this, I'm judging that, oh, this, now that. That's what we become. How can all of that multiplicity of life delude the one who sees its unity? And you step back, you stop judging that stuff and go, whew, yeah. Okay, the self is everywhere. Bright is the self. Indivisible, untouched by sin, wise, immanent, and transcendent. He it is who holds the cosmos together. Okay, the self, that's, again, this is something bigger than just us individual, our five senses. You get to that higher awareness and sit there and go, what is this out here? What is this out here that I can mentally engage with? But if I don't mentally engage with it, it will try to mentally engage with me. What is that? The self is everywhere. Bright is the self. Indivisible, untouched by sin. Sin, in this case, is judgments. Sin is not... We have to define those terms in the mind. This is a mental process. What is a sin? How can you sin in your mind? A sin is saying, I hate that, and I hate you, and I'm going to continue to hate this, or feel this shame, or something like that. Anything like that is derogatory to yourself. untouched by that stuff, wise, immanent, and transcendent. You're above it all. It's not transcended into a spiritual realm beyond life here. This is transcendent here in life. Transcendent is like nirvana, the kingdom of heaven within. In fact, just mentally go to that higher state, and you don't feel the emotions. This higher self out here is untouched by the emotions. That's why when it's talking to you at night and it's saying, hey, you got to go to sleep, just stop and think about that for a moment. You feel that turmoil. But when that voice is talking, you don't feel the turmoil. You feel as soon as you slip back into the memories. It's untouched by the sin, by the memories. Way above it all, standing on higher ground. He it is who holds the cosmos together. The cosmos is my cosmos, your cosmos, my life, my experience. If you went to a flood story, it would be my world needs to be flooded. If you went to Jericho, that's my city that needs to be destroyed. He it is who holds the cosmos together. The cosmos is just a big version of that's where I live. In my mind, my life experience. So, untouched by sin, wise, immanent, and transcendent. That's what holds everything together. You get out here and you go, yeah, I don't feel all that stuff. In dark night live those for whom the world without alone is real. In night darker still for whom the world within alone is real. Okay, in dark night, that's a life of very unawareness, confusion, turmoil. A turmoil, tumultuous mental state for those whom the world outside of you, what you see, is the only real thing. Yeah, that's when we're judging the life. In night darker still, so even worse, for whom the world within alone is real. For the world within alone is real. The first leads to a life of action, the second to a life of meditation. So something doesn't sound right here, does it? It sounds like it's worse. But those who combine action with meditation cross the sea. Okay, got it. Oh, okay. Oh. So you're going to do two things here. All right, got it. So those who only turn outward, it's a dark world. Those who only look at themselves and think of themselves, it's even worse. The first leads to a life of action. You're just always physically doing something. The second, a life of meditation. You know what? That sounds like somebody that just doesn't do anything, that just meditates their entire life away. Which is, I don't see guru. There's a lot of practices, spiritual practices that are done that within the material itself tells you don't do it. Jesus tells people to enter the narrow gate. Many are called, few are chosen. Christians think that they're the few chosen. They don't know that they're the many called. They haven't entered the narrow gate. They haven't turned inward. So Jesus is, in his own teaching, kind of admonishing the people who are carrying the shell, but are not looking inside. They're not interpreting it. They're not figuring what this deeper layer is. So what we have here, it sounds like that. The people that just sit and meditate all your life, you're not helping anything in the world. We didn't evolve to do that. All right, this is an important thing to say. This is for Eastern and Western religions, everybody. When you get to the level of template, there is no teaching here that the individual should spend their life in meditation doing nothing. That is a part of the religion. If you're taking the inward path, that's an inward healing path. And no part of that includes the idea that you spend your days meditating and, having begging bowls and things like that. That is not the way of life that is being taught at the level of template. And what they're doing here, without saying it in plain language, is that very thing. They're letting you know that if you're somebody that just looks at the physical world and that's all there is to it, dark nights. If you're somebody that goes, I'm just going to sit here and meditate my entire life away, darker still. What we want to have is a combination of the two. We want to live a happy life, a life where we are doing fun things and our issues are resolved. Not a life where we're doing nothing, or a life where we're just bouncing off of our memories. Who's feeding you? What are you doing good in life? You require certain things. How does that work? Okay, so there's a point where those who combine action with meditation, so you're doing both. You're realizing that the world and the inside cross the sea of death through action. We start looking at, okay, we just crossed a threshold right there, cross the sea of death through action and enter into immortality, into the belly of the whale. If you're familiar with Joseph Campbell's work. And the practice of meditation, so we have heard from the wise, through the practice of meditation. That would be like, where would that line up with that? Like Moses escapes Pharaoh, crosses the Red Sea, and then spends 40 years in the desert. Or Jesus goes across a threshold of a baptism and then spends 40 days in the wilderness. What do we have here? Cross the sea of death, there's a threshold, and enter into immortality, the healing, through the practice of meditation. There you are in the desert or in the... Yeah, do you see that pattern? It's hard to see until you learn to read these conceptually. That, like I told you, that boat and that, the ship anchored and the dog tied in the yard gets thick. We're seeing that right here. That's how thick it gets. So we have heard from the wise. So we're learning. In dark night live those for whom the Lord is transcendent only. In night darker still for whom he is immanent only. For those whom he is transcendent and immanent cross the sea of death with immanent and enter into immortality with the transcendent. That's a different one, right? Yeah, okay. So what this one is saying is, for those who live, the Lord is transcendent only. Is transcendent only. What does transcendent mean in this case? In dark night live, what was it up here? In dark night live those for whom the world without alone is real. In dark night live those for whom the Lord is transcendent only. So that's something that would be there that it's there, but you're not aware of it. And night darker still for whom he is immanent only. So that would be somebody that just continually stays. So it's kind of like saying the same thing. The person that just sits there and goes, I'm going to sit here and meditate and never leave this state of mind here. You're not living life. You're not living life. You're not reaping the benefits of any sort of memory or anything you're doing. You can sit there all your life and go, I'm just going to meditate from this place. And it's like, well, that doesn't sound very fun and darker still. Okay. But for those who is transcendent and immanent across the sea of death. So we got a threshold again and enter into immortality with the transcendent. So we have heard from the wise. So this one is saying the physical world or the inner world, don't focus on just those two. Same here. The higher awareness is gone or comes in periodically. That's how we live our life until it's time to turn inward. The face of truth is hidden by your orb of gold. O sun, may you remove your orb so that I, who adore the true, may see the glory of truth. That one sounded kind of different, didn't it? O nourishing sun, solitary, traveler, controller, source of life for all creatures, spread your light and subdue your dazzling splendor so that I may see your blessed self, even that very self I am. Okay, so again, remember, you look at this and go, wow, what do I do with this? You have to make it your own and always remember this. The inner ruler. The Lord is enshrined in the hearts of all. All of these have to be interpreted as a mental inner understanding. Okay, the face of truth, the reality of life. What we want to see is hidden by our orb. It's hidden by our, what would that be? That'd be your bundle of memories or your, Jung would call it the shadow. Jesus would call it the ought against your brother. All of that, or the mote that's in your eye. The face of truth is hidden by all of those things. Reality of life is hidden by the perceptions that we have judged. That's our orb of gold. O sun. I don't know why they use gold there. O sun, I don't know. It's really old stuff, so I can't connect into all of it. I don't know what they're using gold there. In this case, of gold. O sun, light, may you remove your orb so that I, who adore the true, may see the glory of truth. Okay, to remove the orb, we're going to have to heal. That's forgiving the ought against our brother or removing the mote from our eye. So that I, who adore the true, may see the glory of the truth. Those are our judgments. We're living through the judgments. We have to be aware of that and stop living through the judgments and start living through the higher awareness. O nourishing sun, solitary traveler, controller, source of life for all creatures, spread your light. So we're just trying to learn. This is the supernatural aid on the template. And then, and subdue your dazzling splendor so that I may see your blessed self, even that very self I am. This is telling you to now, right here, stop, attach to that higher awareness. Sit there and go, oh yeah, I can get here mentally. Now, think of this from the perspective of being humble. Dazzling splendor is not a good thing. That's who you are to begin with. Oh yeah, dazzling. I really. It would actually represent our early self that is confident that we think. I mean, we think we know, but we're not. We're not awake. We're not awake. We're still blind, but we're confident and often wrong. That dazzling self has to be shut down. Just to make sure I cover all the bases here. Awake here means that you are, at first when you live life, we're not aware of this. We're just living life and having experiences. At some point when you realize, oh, I need to turn inward and start living from the higher awareness, where that's considered waking up right there, as that we begin to understand that we're products of the physical world and that we don't want to live through those. That's what I mean when I say not awake or awake. I don't stay here. When I stop paying attention, I slip right back into other things. I have to keep catching myself and getting back to this. This is that. So that I may see your blessed self, even that very self I am. May my life emerge in the immortal when my body is reduced to ashes. O mind, meditate on the eternal Brahman. Remember the deeds of the past. Remember, O mind, remember. Okay, Brahman is what Hindus call the all, the everything. So that is that same thing that I'm calling the quantum, whatever we emerge from, the all that is out there. But that there's also, like I said, if you really stop and think about it, you will see that you not only can you engage with that from your conscious self, but if you're living life not paying attention, sometimes that higher self engages with you. It comes in on its own. What is that, a factor of our own mind or something else? At times you meditate, it seems like, nope, there's something out here. Although, I mean, it's limited. You can't get out there and then go have somebody else's experience. You can't get into somebody else's experience or head or anything. So anyway, it's just something you have to practice. But living from there is happy compared to living through memories. Living from there is bliss. Living through our memories is not. Living from there, we are disconnected from our memories. So we go there and we actually now also have to heal the memories. But yeah, we're going to see that. It said right up here, remove your orb. Yep, we want to get rid of this stuff. It's not just sit from the higher self and ignore it, because you're going to keep slipping back into it. May my life emerge in the immortal when my body is reduced to ashes. So this sounds like physical world again, but it's not. My body, my physical self, when I have said, okay, yeah, that early self that was unaware, that was just screaming and yelling and is now, that is reduced to ashes. I am being reborn now. Oh mind, meditate on the eternal Brahman, that higher awareness. Sit with the higher awareness. Remember the deeds of the past. Remember, oh mind, remember. Remember the deeds of the past. In this case, I don't want to glaze over that. The only thing I can think that it means is that it's telling us to remember our sins, our memories, those things that we have that need to be resolved, because we know that it is mental, that's what we're getting to. What are the deeds of the past? There are memories and the emotional state with them. Those are the deeds of the past. Remember, O mind, remember. So I don't know why it tells us to remember the deeds of the past, but I do know that we have to understand that we're living through those deeds of the past and that we have to rectify them. We rectify them through perception. We can't change that they happened. We have to change how we perceive them, how we connect with them, how much we are a victim or a perpetrator. That's what we have to change. Sometimes as I go through this, I can't figure it out, but it comes to me very quickly afterwards. It sounds like almost a cyclical pain element. There's a point in Taoism right in the beginning where it tells you naming is the origin of all particular things. That means whatever you've decided in your mind. And that caught in desire, you see only the manifestation. That means caught in what you are hanging onto, the anchored ship cannot sail. Caught in desire, you see only the manifestations. That's what this kind of sounds like right here. Remember, oh mind, remember. the deeds of the past. O God of fire, lead us by the good path to eternal joy. You know all our deeds. Deliver us from evil, we who bow and pray again and again. Okay, this is repetitively going back again and again. Higher awareness. You're not praying to... If you don't interpret the material, you're going to carry this, and you're going to pray again and again and again to a God out there someplace. But if you know what it means internally, this is not praying again and again to the God out in space. This is connecting again and again, repeatedly, with your higher awareness. Deliver us from evil. Evil is the turmoil, the experiences that we're living. We who bow, we have to be humble. It's a humility issue. O God of fire, lead us by the good path to eternal joy. You know all of our deeds. Yeah, we know everything that bothers us. Just think about it. And did you see that shift to God of fire right there? Fire is something that is going to be an element that as we move along the way, we're going to have to change the frequency of something. We're going to have to change something. We're going to have to destroy something. We're going to have to burn something at the altar. God of fire right here is that. We have a memory and an emotional state that needs to be destroyed. It's going to be destroyed by, metaphorically, the part of us that we're going to call the God of fire. Yep. It's been a problem. I've lived with it all my life, and now I see what to do. I'm going after it. Right there, we just became the God of fire going down the good path. You remember it. You may not like it, but you remember it. Deliver us from evil, we who bow and pray again and again. We're going in and trying to wash it off, looking at it. What happens is that we get used to things. We have to look at it in a certain way. If you keep remembering something over and over again and you think about it in a very derogatory way, you're making it worse. When we understand that, we have to keep thinking about it again, only now we think about it with a mindset in such a way that we're not making it worse. We're trying to make it so that it is now dissipated. The energy is dissipated. We're living through those, and those, in their energy state, in the emotional state of them, continue to dictate the flow in life. One more thing here, what did it say in the end? Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Shanti is an invocation for peace or an invocation to God and is usually chanted 3 times to become Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. This mantra means Om, peace, peace, peace. The phrase can be seen as a salutation, but it appears mostly in Hindu and Buddhist prayers, writings, and ceremonies. Originally, Shanti Shanti came from the Sanskrit root sham, which means calm, soothing, and happy. Sanskrit has many linguistic and phonological changes that can occur and transition words to other forms of itself. Thus, sham eventually changes into Shanti. So that's what that's about. The Om, I want to talk about that for a minute. I learned this long ago. I don't do it. I did it as a practice long ago. If you've seen it where people do the chanting, but it's like a deep Om. There's a point where you're doing it. You're not just saying Om. What you're doing is trying to get yourself positioned in such a way that you feel kind of a vibration at the base of your skull. There's a rumbling, there's something going on there, and that this somehow is supposed to induce a kind of an altered state. Now, when I did it, it seemed like it did induce an altered state, but between then and now, I've understood that doing physical practices, looking for an altered state will get you to that altered state. That you can get to that altered state without the physical practice or through other physical practices. But Om is one of those things, but it's done very purposefully. If you ever see them doing that, they're looking for I can't do it. I'm not going to do it on the video or try to. I have to play around with it. But you're looking to, if you do it right, you'll sense kind of a vibration from the vocal, from whatever is vibrating in there. It'll kind of radiate upwards. Anyway, I just wanted to say that. Okay, so as far as the rest of it, that's the interpretation right there. That's the mental interpretation. This is going to be something that emerges on a template that is the human life template. All myths and religions, I'm going to say, are built on this, but it's very difficult to see because of the nature of the analogous nature of the material, but also. Long ago, they didn't read or write. There were people that had this written down. There were smart people. There was writing, but the vast majority of people did not read or write. They had these memorized, and having them memorized gives you a different kind of mental access to it. Think of something that you have to do, a big project or something like that, something that you're very familiar with, you already know what to do. Something that's a big project you don't know anything about, you got to stop and figure it out and look through it. We're all the time going through the book, figuring it out. We don't have it known at a deep enough level to really analyze this. I have spent years just working on this very exclusively, and I realize the amount of time it takes. And also realizing that in their time, that's exactly what they had, time. We're not treating the material in the way that they treated it. We're kind of stand back looking at it, trying to worship it. We're not living it. I am that. I am. We are all that. All right, I might miss a few pieces here, but in a nutshell then, what did we learn in the video from that Upanishad? That there is a higher awareness that exists that we all come from, and that is a primary mental state that we get to, and that this material is mental. It's to be understood as something that is analogous verbiage, that if you don't interpret it, you're going to worship it. If you do interpret it, it's going to become mentally interactive. So, and it's going to be something that is in common globally with other teachings if you treat all of those the same way. I should say here that if you were to go to Buddhism, Buddhism is a huge religion, but if you took the Dhammapada, one small book, that's Buddha's core teaching. Buddhism emerges from there. If you took a very small book called the Tao Te Ching from Lao Tzu, it's the book of Taoism. It's a very small book. Taoism is huge. It's a religion that just is huge. There's a very small core teaching right there in that book. If you go to Jesus, it's not as big as those by any means, but his entire ministry in the New Testament. If you went to the Sermon on the Mount, that's his core teaching right there. Right here in the Upanishads is exactly the same thing with respect to Hinduism. Hinduism is monstrously huge for the population. At the very core, it's this teaching. The Upanishads is that core. In the same way, the Dhammapada, the Tao Te Ching, Sermon on the Mount, it serves the same role. Here's a nutshell if you can figure it out. This is super critical to say. You take all four of those and interpret them in this process right here, you will find all four of those masters are teaching the exact same thing in cryptic ways, in their own cryptic verbiage. The difference is on the outside. When you find the inside, the differences go away. You got to turn inward to find peace on earth. It's got a different sound to it, too. It's not quite that story thing like Arjuna and Krishna on the battlefield getting ready to, driving the chariot up and down and surveying what to do and all that. It doesn't have that. It's a different kind of a sound to it. It's an instructional thing. Okay, so yeah, the higher awareness, we come from there to seek that, find that, continue to go there to reduce. We've developed memories, a bundle of memories that we need to reduce. That's the gold of the gold orb. Gold, I would imagine, yeah, that would be like treasures. Don't lay yourself up treasures on earth where moth and dust corrupt. This is gold represents then that you're holding on to something of the earth, a value, a physical value, when you should be looking for spiritual value. As within, so without. So why bother looking for the physical? If you got it spiritually, the physical will happen as a result. Remembering, always remembering, you have to make the verse mentally interactive. It has to somehow be something up here. So it's not about a handful of gold. It is about a metaphoric idea that you're holding on to something of value that is not what you should be holding on to of value. That gold is no good. You need something better than gold. You need something ethereal. From there, everything comes from. Anyway, okay, so the real teaching here is to just make sure that you understand that you're going to, or what I would glean from it, it's a mental process, but that you've become a product of your judged experiences and that we have to work to clear those out and reattach to the higher awareness. That's the inner functioning of the way this works. And if you look at that and apply it to your life, you would say, well, it fits. And I could take that, those chunks of teaching from Buddha, Lao Tzu, Jesus here, put them all together and realize that they're all teaching the same thing. They're all that core material held in different analogous verbiage. It's reading the analogs and understanding what they're doing. If I'm hanging on to something, I just create a story that is a physical story that replicates something that's happening mentally. That it's simple to make a story that way. As we get into bigger stuff in the other stories, a mental hierarchy comes in. I'd mention Arjuna and Krishna. Arjuna and Krishna are up here. Krishna is the higher awareness. Arjuna is the conscious self. So the stories are still going to work, but they're going to start putting in layers of something that have to do with the mental hierarchy. Here you've got that orb of gold that needs to be dissipated. There you have land that belongs to you, your new self, you're supposed to have back. However, your family, which had it on loan, your earlier self, was supposed to give it up, and they're not giving it up. So you have to go back and do battle with yourself. We're going to see that Lord Krishna is the chariot driver, and that's all he can do. He lets Arjuna know, you've got to do the battle, you've got to make the decision, you've got to do it yourself. Look at how that works. This is the higher awareness saying, I'm here, I can help you, I can do the work with you, but you have to drive the boat, you consciousness. It's up to you to go defeat this up here. It's beautiful. So it's going to follow a very common motif doing something like that. Greeks do that. Jews do that, yeah. So the Upanishads are much simpler to go through and hopefully a little bit more approachable for some people. Anyway, okay, I hope that was helpful. I hope it was interesting. I will work on the next one. I think when I get into the next video, I won't have to do all that lead in, and it should go much quicker. Appreciate your patience. Hope you made it this far. Questions, comments, I'd appreciate it. Thanks. See you in the next video.